See if all is good, and then we're gonna dive straight into movie news. Not much movie news today, by the way, so I can talk to you about the movies that I actually want to talk about. Let's see what we've got here. All right, perfect. We are live. We're good. Looks good. Right, let's go for it. Here we go. Gal Gadot, you know who that is, I assume. If you do not, she's Wonder Woman. That's basically who she is. She may star as a real life Wonder Woman, Hedy Lamarr, in a new Showtime series. Now, I know a series is more like TV stuff than it is cinema, but she's like a movie star, especially since last year's Wonder Woman. So, and considering Hedy Lamarr is quite, an impressive lady. And I'm really excited for the project, so I'm going to mention it. It's my show, and I do what I want. So, Variety reports that Gal Gadot's Hedy Lamarr series is in the works at Showtime, which is really good cable channel. The series, which has not formally been picked up by the cable network, would be written and executive produced by Sarah Treem, the creator and showrunner of Showtime's other really acclaimed show, Golden Globe winning show, The Affair. Now, I've only watched a few episodes of that show, but I know it's supposed to be really good. Everyone's raving about it, blah, blah, blah. So it sounds good that Sarah Treem is attached to the Hedy Lamarr one. And Handmaid's Tale executive producer Warren Littlefield and Gadot's husband, Jaron Versano, are on board to executive produce. So now I'm not entirely sure what the background is for Gal Gadot's husband, if he's a producer or if that's just like a weird credit you just sling at people. But he's apparently also on board. And the cool thing about Hedy Lamarr, one of the things that, I knew that she was like a big screen star. She was like an icon back in the day. And she has a really remarkable real life story aside from her Hollywood career. Which is something I only found out recently because one of my mates actually told me about that. So she was born in Austria and she lived there during the time of the Second World War. She was born to Jewish parents, so she's officially Jewish. If her mom's Jewish, you're Jewish, right? And Lamarr fled an unhappy marriage and the Second World War for the US, where she was scouted by an MGM executive and she became the Hollywood actress that we all know. Or if you don't, really, what have you been doing? And she was really known for her glamour and her beauty. Like back in the day, like all the actresses, it was, even nowadays it is like that, glamour, beauty, yada yada yada, right? But she was like, wow. But the thing is, she was so much more than that, because her true passion, it wasn't acting. She was into science, and back then, obviously, even nowadays, it's not easy for women to get into science and especially get the accolades that they deserve. Most often, men just grab it from them or just get it, attributed to their name, even though someone else invented something. She basically invented the precursor of Wi-Fi. Because of her scientific discoveries, we now, like, I'm streaming to you over Wi-Fi. That would not be possible without Hedy Lamarr, okay? Her patent was for frequency hopping technology geared toward radio communications, and that is the basis for Wi-Fi that we use every single day. And she was never attributed that, and she also never received any kind of money for that. But without her discovery, we wouldn't probably have Wi-Fi. Not the way that we have it nowadays. Someone else would have had to discover it some decades later, whatever it is. So I'm really excited about this project, not just because Gal Gadot is going to star in it potentially, if it goes ahead, but also because Hedy Lamarr as a public and historical figure is really, really interesting, because all we usually know, I'm a culprit of that as well. It's like all I knew was like, yeah, Hedy Lamarr, a Hollywood actress, She was really glamorous. She was really beautiful. That's it. It's like, no, that's not it. There's so much more to her. And we need to really dish out these kind of stories. There's so many amazing women throughout history that have contributed in regards to science and technology that we're just not really aware of. We attribute these discoveries to a lot of men who might have followed up on these women's works or who just stumbled upon them and just took it and ran with it. And I think because even in school, you're not really told about these kinds of things. It's just glassed over, and we need to dig out these stories and tell them. It's like Hidden Figures, that what was that movie 2 years ago? About the black women that helped NASA actually put a man on the moon. Stuff like that, I was not aware of it. And it's because we're not told these things. And it's important that we're told these things, because little girls that are in school and that want to become scientists, they need role models. And I didn't know that Hedy Lamarr was one, and probably neither did you. So yes, I can't wait for the show. Now, in less happy news, well, depends on how you see it. But given the current climate and everything that's happening, like with James Gunn and a lot of other things, Johnny Depp, his Biggie Smalls movie called City of Lies is no longer appearing in cinemas. It was supposed to screen, it was supposed to open, I think, next week or something. It has been pulled from the release calendar without a further date. So we don't know if it's going to be showing at all, if it's going to show next year, whatever it is. The City of Lies is a film that stars Johnny Depp and Forest Whitaker, as they try to crack the case of who murdered iconic rapper, the notorious B.I.G., aka Biggie Smalls, in a 97 drive-by shooting. Can't believe it's already been 20 years since they shot Biggie. Deadline reports the distribution company Global Road has not set a new release date, leaving the film's future hanging in the balance. And complicating matters, and that is where it gets a bit iffy, is a lawsuit against Depp, another one, from the film's location manager, a guy called Greg Brooks. And he stated that he was repeatedly hit by Depp after being informed that filming that night in downtown LA was going to have to wrap late. So that was apparently some kind of news that Johnny Depp did not agree with. He doesn't like to wrap late, apparently, and beat the living shit out of the guy, apparently. Which doesn't really come as much of a surprise, considering a few years ago the allegations that he assaulted his then wife, now ex-wife, Amber Heard. It was settled outside of court. Johnny Depp paid a bunch of millions to Amber Heard, who then gave it to a charity. I can't remember what it was, like for domestic abuse victims or something like that. So she didn't make a cent off of that, which I thought was great. But as was the case back then, it's the same case now, that obviously his fans and people that like him and love him, they're saying this is all bullshit. This is all, it's all bollocks. This guy's just making it up to make, to get a paycheck, basically. I was like, you know what? If people repeatedly bring up the same shit about a person over and over again, sure, it could be a load of shit. People who just don't like him and wanna say crap about him. And wanna kind of shed a negative light on him in public space. But usually when unrelated people who don't know each other, when they are coming up with the same shit about the same person, there's usually a tiny bit of truth in it. It's the same thing with a lot of other people. I have some interesting discussions about the latest one was Chris Hardwick, and then obviously we also had James Gunn. And I think last week or the week before, I was having this whole thing about what I thought about the situation with James Gunn. Have a look at that. I think it was 2 weeks ago. For me, there's a huge difference whether someone is being talked about as being a domestic abuser, a sexual assaulter, a violent person, especially a physically violent person, but psychologically is also horrendous. Whereas the stuff with James Gunn is about a bunch of tweets. That is just utter bollocks compared to that, right? And yet we have big studios and production companies that are happily working with Johnny Depp. And that includes family-friendly stuff like J.K. Rowling's Fantastic Beast. Obviously, Johnny Depp's a huge part in that. They're happily working with him, while Disney seems to cut all ties with James Gunn because he tweeted 10 years ago and made some shitty jokes on Twitter. The latest sort of victim of that is also, Sarah Silverman. And we all know how outspoken Sarah Silverman is, and what she stands for. And yet someone unearthed a tweet that sounded like she was pro-pedophilia, which, if you've ever listened to anything that Sarah Paulson, that Sarah Silverman has to say, you know that she is outspoken against that. And that's like, it's just, if you take things out of context, right? But for me personally, when I hear a victim coming forward, especially if the victim is a woman, I tend to listen and I tend to believe her, especially given the Me Too campaign and stuff like that. And I know that, of course, there's always the small chance that that person might be lying, because idiots who are lying are ruining it for everyone else who's telling the truth. But that doesn't mean that people might not necessarily tell the truth. Okay, so it's like all the stuff that is coming out about Hardwick, about Depp, about a lot of other people. You don't need 10, 20 or 100 people saying the same thing about a person. One person should be enough. We don't need that person to be like a repeat offender, to be an atrocious human being. One case of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, whatever else it is enough to not want to work with this person, to put that person on the blacklist, to never ever engage with that person ever again. And yes, a lot of people go like, well, it couldn't be proven. It's like, do you know how hard it is to prove these things? And yes, proven innocent until proven guilty, and I do believe in that. However, I also know how hard it is to prove these kinds of things. When I say I know how hard it is, I'm not a cop, but you see how often these cases are dismissed because of lack of evidence. And then that doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't happen. It just means there's not enough evidence to convict that person in a court of law. And that does not mean the person is innocent. That just means the person's not been convicted. And those are two very separate things. And for me personally, I choose to believe the victim, even though, like I said, every now and then someone comes forward and is unfortunately lying and is ruining the entire fucking thing for everyone. And women who are lying about this thing, you're not doing anyone any favors. You need to fucking stop that, because you're part of the problem. But yeah, I choose to believe the victim, first and foremost, because this shit happens so often, every single day on this planet. That it happens so often that it baffles people how often it happens and how normalized that kind of behavior is nowadays. And we need to have the public and the media finally start not to normalize it, to call that shit out. And if I have to be one of the first to do that, then so be it. And if I get a lot of shit for it, so be it. At me. Don't give a cock. Seriously. So Brooks, the dude that was assaulted by Depp, is charging Depp with assault and battery and seeks damages for hostile work environment, retaliation, and wrongful termination among the claims. So he was also apparently let go of his job because, you know, that's what wrongful termination means, right? And assholes like this keep getting employed. Their fans make excuses for their behavior or totally dismiss the claims right from the get-go, especially when the claims are being put forward by a woman. Maybe this time people won't deny it straight away, as the claimant isn't a woman but a guy. Because the funny thing is that the public, the mainstream public, always has a hard time believing a woman versus a man. I don't know where that stems from, but it's fucked up. And that is also one of the reasons why I choose to believe the victim, especially if the victim is a woman. Because yes, there is a good chance that there might be a chance that she's lying because she's just trying to get back at someone, but there is also a really fucking good chance that what she's saying is true. Because the shit that people like that are talking about, that victims are bringing up and no one wants to listen to them, that shit happens all the time, every single day. If you're a woman, you probably know what people are talking about and how prevalent that is in our society. If you're a man, you're like, oh, not another one, not again. What is up with all of this whole Me Too? And it's like, well, all these people who are tweeting this Me Too, that can't be right. It's like spamming the entirety of Twitter. Guess what? It's because we have to live with this shit every single day of our lives. And maybe if you just got out of like your little tunnel vision life and actually try to listen to people that are trying to talk to you and tell you something, and take it on board without judgment and prejudice, you would actually potentially learn something. So I do believe them, and maybe I'm wrong, but sue me. There's nothing to get anyway. But I do hope that people will just keep speaking out, because speaking out is good. Even if you don't get anywhere in a court of law, even if the general public doesn't believe you, who gives a shit? You know you're right, and you know that you've spoken out loudly, publicly, you've made it known. What the general public does with that has got nothing to do with you. You've said your piece, you've spoken your truth, and I hope that that makes you feel better. And it unloads that ginormous burden that you've had with you, keeping that secret, because keeping a secret like that is a horrendous feeling. Like, the word horrendous doesn't even do it justice. Keeping shit like that down destroys you from the inside out. So letting all of that out and talking openly about it is a good thing. And I do hope that we will never ever stop again talking publicly, openly about this shit that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And if you need someone to talk to, find me on Twitter. 2 ears, they're really good for listening. I know this is talking a lot, but that's just because I'm a one-woman show. Now, on to happier news. Really happy news. Rebecca Ferguson currently is in cinemas with the latest Mission Impossible franchise, Mission Impossible Fallout, which is good. Go see it if you haven't. I still haven't seen it a second time. I really want to potentially go next week. But she is now in the news. Apparently she's confirmed that she has just joined the Men in Black spin-off in a rather mysterious role. Mysterious because no one is telling us who the hell she's playing. She's apparently in a lead role, but we don't know anything other than that. So our scene stealer for Mission Impossible, Rebecca Ferguson, she's now officially been added to the spin-off for Men in Black. Sony confirmed she will not be playing the female lead that is reserved for Tessa Thompson from Thor Ragnarok. But who is Ferguson playing? Everyone is kind of discussing that. It's like, who the hell could she be playing? Maybe she's playing the villain. She recently did an interview here in the UK on BBC, where she was stating that she kind of likes playing villains for whatever reason, because of the Dr. Seuss is what I wanted to say. That's not what it's called. The Shining sequel, Dr. Sleep. She's confirmed to play the villain in that. And she mentioned on that interview how much that, like, really entices her. She's like really, really, what's the word? Excited. She's really excited to be playing a villain. So I was wondering what if she also plays a villain. Like, maybe she's on a roll. She's doing this whole like, oh, I like playing the villain. Oh, and I can have another villain role. Because obviously she's really kick-ass in Mission Impossible. In the previous one, Rogue Nation, we weren't entirely sure whether she was a villain or not until stuff gets revealed throughout the film. And I thought that was really interesting to have her play as a counterpart to Tom Cruise, even though, of course, they're now kind of friends. But they had this whole thing as like, are they fighting against each other? Are they fighting with each other? You don't really know. So if she's playing this in Mission Impossible, in Men in Black, that would be really, really interesting. She said that she's fascinated by villain characters. We have that in common. So since she, like I said, playing one in Dr. Sleep, maybe she's playing one here. So I'm definitely excited for the Men in Black spin-off anyway. I mean, Tessa Thompson, she was great in Thor Ragnarok. We have Chris Hemsworth playing in Doctor Sleep as well. We have Emma Thompson, no relation to Tessa Thompson, Liam Neeson, Kumail Nanjiani, and now Rebecca Ferguson. And Rebecca Ferguson is on my list, you know, my infamous list of people who are enough for me to go to the cinema, just because I know that their name is attached to a movie. So I'm really excited for this. I mean, I like Men in Black anyway, even though I can't really remember the second or the third one as much. But I loved the Man in Black franchise in general. And the spin-off is scheduled for a May 2019 release. So that should be something really good next year. You have a lot of stars in it that I love to see. Tessa Thompson is fantastic as Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok. I haven't seen her really in anything else. But I really love her. She's very charismatic. So her having the lead in this. Chris Hemsworth is hilarious. I didn't know exactly how funny he was until I'd seen the Ghostbusters reboot. And he almost stole the show. And I mean, Kate McKinnon was in this. And I love Kate McKinnon. But Hemsworth was amazing. So I'm really, really excited for that. Comes out next year. And speaking of Kate McKinnon, that was such a great segue. And I didn't even realize that. This is all the news I have for you today. Now I want to talk to you. Oh, and quick shout out. Thank God I've got graphics. It's Thursday again, and I've not been plugging it for a while. So my friend Sean Francis, she does a web series called A Nurse's Therapy. Check it out on YouTube. Follow them on Facebook as well. It's a really cool show about a nurse that is going through some tough times at work and at home. She has potentially an abusive husband. And, you know, you learn, the episodes are very short. They're like between 2 and 4 minutes. I think it's really, really short. They're like little glimpses into the lives of Ellen and her friends. Yeah, little disclaimer, I'm part of this web series as well. I played a best friend called Tracy. So have a look. There's always a new episode on a Monday and a Thursday morning. So there was a new show that was released just earlier today. And Ellen is getting up to some really weird shenanigans, trying to sort out her life that is falling apart. And Tracy is not helping because she has the weirdest and craziest ideas that you can imagine. And Ellen is just so mental at the moment that she just does whatever Tracy tells her to. So check that out. If you just go to tinyurl.com/A Nurse's Therapy, it will take you to, I think it takes you to it takes you to YouTube. And then you can watch the latest episodes, comment on there, like the videos, subscribe to it so you're not missing anything. The good thing is that those videos are never more than 5 minutes long. It's really easy to just quickly catch up on that. And it's a fun little show, and we're trying to make it, because it's quite tragic and it deals with, like I said, domestic abuse and stuff like that. But we're trying to give it a bit more of a funny spin now as well, because Tracy is a bit of a lunatic because she's played by me. So yeah, check it out and let us know what you think. And with that was my segue that I now just totally went like, oh, snip, snip. Putting the segue back in. Speaking of Kate McKinnon, there's a new movie coming out. Oh, I wanted to check when it actually comes out in cinemas. I totally forgot. The Spy Who Dumped Me UK release date is the one thing I didn't check on. Let's see what it says. Do it now. Oh, 22nd of August. Okay, so I had the chance to watch that on Tuesday. Yes, it was Tuesday. There was a press screening and I got to see it and I was really hyped for it. And I had a really good time. So the film comes out regularly on the 22nd of August. And when it comes out, I need to go and see it again with a normal audience, because press screening audiences can be so weird. You know, there was one person sitting next to me who was having a blast. Every 5 minutes, he was just like laughing his ass off. And I was like, he's clearly loving this. So that is a good one. So what is The Spy Who Dumped Me about? Just in case you haven't seen the trailer, or you don't know anything about it, obviously you can see Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon are starring in the film. The synopsis is The Spy Who Dumped Me tells the story of Audrey, played by Mila Kunis, and Morgan, played by Kate McKinnon, two best friends who unwittingly become entangled in an international conspiracy when one of the women discovers the boyfriend who dumped her was actually a spy. You know, just your typical Monday, right? And it stars Mila Kunis, Kate McKinnon, Sam Hugen, I'm not sure, the dude from Outlander. If you don't know what Outlander is, you really need to watch that show. Gillian Anderson is in this, and Justin Theroux, and a bunch of other people whose names I can't remember. And now the cool thing is that I didn't have time to write it all down, so I have my little notebook of I Kermoded the shit out of it. So I was sitting in the dark and just like writing stuff down while I was watching the film, and that actually worked really well. And I sort of can actually read what it says. So overall, I was really, really positively surprised by the film. Like, I expected the film to be good, to be a lot of fun, and it was, but I didn't expect it to be, I almost said profound, but that's not the right word. It's very reaffirming, and it sheds a very positive light on female friendships and best friendships, and this whole how should I say that, like reaffirming that you as a woman are a great person. And I know that sounds really weird. I'm probably not phrasing that right, but every now and then it's like that there's hilariously ridiculous nonsensical scenes happening left, right, and center. They're going from one extreme to the next to the next. It's absolutely bonkers, and you just kind of have to go with it. It is so silly, but it knows that it's silly, and that's why it works. And they're like in the craziest situation, and then they just manage to take a breather because they're stuck in a loo together or somewhere. And Kate McKinnon's character Morgan just goes like, okay, Audrey, let's just appreciate you. Let's just quickly appreciate what you've done, what you've managed to do, because that shit is like so out there. And it's literally just about like, can you just really look back, take a second and look back over the last few hours, what you've done, what you've managed to achieve without any training and stuff like that. And they do that several times throughout the film. Like, Morgan is like a really great best friend who goes like, can you just stop and breathe, and can you appreciate how amazing you are? You've just done, and I don't want to spoil anything because Ilovecinema is supposed to be spoiler free. And you've just done this, and you've just done that, and you've just done that, and you didn't think you could do any of that, and you've just done it as if it was nothing. Like, spur of the moment, you just rose to the occasion because shit just happened to blow up left, right, and center. That is just a metaphor. I'm not saying shit actually blew up. And Morgan just goes like, can you just quickly learn to appreciate that you're fucking awesome? And they do that every now and then. And that is something that I really loved about the film, because this is something that women don't necessarily do. We don't just take a breather and just go, wow, what I've done today was really fucking awesome. No, we just go, you know, it's in the past, we've done it, looking forward onto the next problem, onto the next thing, you know, like getting ready and sorting shit out. And I think that's one of the things that I really loved about it. It's a really positive portrayal of female friendship. There's no cattiness and bitchiness and all of that stuff. It's just really supportive and full of love. And there are things in there that happen that I think a lot of women can really relate to. There's, for example, there's something. Obviously, Morgan is played by Kate McKinnon. And if you don't know who Kate McKinnon is, where the hell have you been in the last few years, right? I think she won an Emmy for Saturday Night Live. She's really highly prolific. Everyone in America knows who Kate McKinnon is. She plays Ellen on Saturday Night Live. She plays Hillary Clinton on Saturday Night Live. She's just absolutely fantastic in what she does. She's hilarious. Her slapstick is fantastic. She's very witty, and with it, there's just, you can't win a verbal argument against her. There's just no fucking way. She's just too clever, too switched on, too fast, and too awesome. You know, she was the best thing about the Ghostbusters reboot. And I'm not a huge fan of the Ghostbusters reboot, even though I thought it was a lot of fun. But it's also, there's a lot of shit in it. But overall, I had a good time with it. And it's because Kate McKinnon is a bit out there, but she's doing that in a very charming and captivating way. And she does the same thing here. And obviously Mila Kunis is, she's a hilarious actor as well. I didn't really know how funny she was until I'd seen her play in Bad Moms, which I thought was going to be an absolutely waste of time, horrendous chick flick. And then I watched it and I had one of the best times ever in the cinema because it was just so much fun. And she does that here as well. But obviously you have McKinnon, who is a mental case, a basket case pretty much in the film. Not like, I don't know her personally, so I don't know. But like, she's really out there. And as someone in the film says to Morgan, you're a little bit much, aren't you? Which is probably something that a lot of women hear if they're very outspoken. And Mila Kunis, on the other hand, even though she is absolutely hilarious in this film, but she's kind of like this, the straight and narrow kind of person, whereas McKinnon is the bonkers doofus, so to speak. So they clearly have this whole like Abbott Costello kind of a thing. One more serious one, the clown. But they both work really, really well with each other. And you can understand why these characters are best friends and how they're connected. Because while one of the reasons I told one of my mates as well is like, I'm not sure if you'll like the movie because that will depend on how much you like Kate McKinnon and her kind of humor and slapstick comedy. Because if you don't like that, I don't think this film is for you. Because this film feels like, I'm a huge fan of Kate McKinnon. I think she's absolutely fantastic. She's hilarious. But there were points in the movie where I was thinking, like, wow, you're a bit much. And then a male character actually says that to her later. And you can tell how it's like, you know, a stab to the heart for the character. And I'm like, fuck, and I've been thinking that as well. Just because that's just who you are, you know. If people can't deal with you, then fuck them. That's what I always say about myself, because I can actually relate to that, because people tell me every now and then, it's like, you're a bit much. They might phrase it slightly differently, but that is exactly what they mean. You need to tone it down. You're a bit extreme. You're a bit too bonkers. And which I thought was really funny, that I could relate to that in a movie like this. I didn't think that there would be anything that profound or connecting material for me, but there actually was. And I'm not as crazy and as lunatic as Kate McKinnon is as Morgan, because she is really like, she is bonkers. But it has this moment where it kind of reels it back in and goes, you know how often women are being told, you're a bit much, you're a bit bossy, you're a bit bitchy, you're a bit this, you're a bit that, all because we say what we're thinking, because we're not censoring ourselves. And for whatever reason, a lot, like the majority of the male world, can't deal with that, with outspoken women. And I think that's one of the things that is part of this film as well. I want to point out also that one of the things that was not very surprising for me at the end, when the credits rolled, was that the film was also directed by a woman, which I thought was really fantastic. You could kind of feel that throughout the entire film. That made it a lot of fun as well. This film really understands women and female relationships really, really well. There's quite a lot of situations in this film, and this film is very stylized and it's very over the top. It is an over-the-top comedy. There's no realism in there whatsoever. But it takes these characters and gives them relationships and situations they find themselves in that ring really true, I think, probably for a lot of women. And I think this is going to be a great film for women and best friends and just groups of female friends to go to the cinema with. Because people will just go like, yeah, that's so us, or I can so relate to that, or whatever it is. So for that alone, I think the film is really good. But that doesn't mean that the film is only for a female audience. Quite the opposite. There's a lot of stuff in there that I think men are going to find hilarious. There's a lot of action in this, which I was very, very surprised by. Because we have obviously the spy scenario, which is not a spoiler. So Justin Theroux plays the boyfriend who turns out to be the spy. And he left something with Audrey, who's played by Mila Kunis. And because he dumped her, she's doing that whole thing. She's like, I'm going to burn your shit. And he's like, can you please not burn my shit? I'm going to come and pick it up. Not really a spoiler because, the film is very, very predictable, very cliche. There's no real surprises other than the situational comedic stuff, which is absolutely hilarious. And then you have Sam Hugen, however you pronounce his last name, I'm not sure. The guy from Outlander who plays another special agent who kind of comes in there and is friend or foe or whatever. And that's why the girls find themselves in the weirdest situations. Like they find themselves part of a shootout, a car chase. If you've seen the trailer, you know that at least one of them kills someone potentially by accident, but they kill someone. So they live through all these ridiculously over the top scenarios, and they make it out of their life, and that is just pure coincidence. It's not because they're all of a sudden they turn out to be amazing spy material or something, or whatever it is, but just pure luck. It's literally just pure luck that they survive all the shit that they encounter. And it is hilarious how that all comes together. And the film also lives from small little details here and there. Like some of the stuff that I've written down is like, one of the things, it starts with the song Wind of Change by the Scorpions, which is like, you just want to have like the lighter on and go like, it's just awesome. And then there's like a great action sequence right from the get-go where Justin Theroux has to run away from bad guys or whatever, while at the same thing you have the girls going like, oh, he just dumped me, he's such an asshole, and blah blah blah, as girls just bitch, just like men bitch when the girlfriend just dumped the boyfriend, that kind of a thing. And that's just really cool stuff. Great action sequences, where like I just wrote down white ball in scarf. Like he takes a white ball out of a market, just puts it into a scarf so that he can kind of do that thing and like smash it into people's faces. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. One of the things that is quite obvious from the get-go is that Kate McKinnon is the the comic relief. She immediately takes over the movie, being totally, like I said already, totally bonkers. She's clearly the extreme one in this. She owns the film. Absolutely loved it. Like there's even stuff where, because it is so cliche, you go like, you're walking with this guy you don't know in front of a van, and you're saying it's like, oh, it's really funny that I walk outside with a stranger in front of a really sketchy van. Like you might as well pull me in there and go like, and yeah, that's really weird because that's actually what I'm gonna do. And those kinds of things that happens all the time. The dialogue is hilariously funny. The situational comedy is great. And then we've got, Drew is part of the CIA. He's played by Justin Theroux. He's part of CIA. He goes missing. And then, of course, the CIA buddies go, shit, he's missing. He was looking after something. We have to sort out what's missing now. And another thing that is great is that Mila Kunis' Audrey is a really shit liar. They established that really early on in the film. And you know what happens when you establish something in the first act. It pays off in the third act, right? And it's just absolutely brilliant the way that they do it. It's almost like in Ant-Man when Michael Pena is talking about doing his whole retelling thing. It's like, and then I told him to what, and blah, blah, blah. And then everything, all the other characters are playing what he's saying while Michael Pena's voice is coming out of their mouth. And you have something similar here where Audrey just, she can't tell a lie because she just goes into too many details. She gives every single lie a huge history, which is why I was like, you've been thinking about this way too long. And Kate McKinnon goes like, that's not how you lie. I'll show you how you lie. It's like, how's Drew doing? No, it's like, what's new with you? And she goes, I bought a boat. Next. It's like, that's what you do. You just quickly say a one sentence lie and that's it. And it works really, really well. I loved it. It's absolutely brilliant. There's a weird dick shot in the film. This whole thing about how a lot of directors and cinematographers, male ones, like shooting between a woman's legs and use that for framing and stuff. We have the same thing, but the gender's reversed. And it's just, you staring at it, it's like, I don't need to see a cock and balls. And then the camera turns around and it goes like, I really don't need to see full frontal nudity. And then something happens, something really funny, thanks to Kate McKinnon, and you just immediately forget about that. You haven't even digested what you've just seen, and then Kate McKinnon does something, and you're like, holy fucking shit. And there's one funny thing after the next, and it's like rapid fire. So you haven't even properly noticed and consciously appreciated it, let alone digested it, and then the next thing comes at you and you're like, whoa, I just can't deal, there's just too much happening. And it's like that throughout the entire film, and it's really great. And I did mention there's great action, usually by accident, the women just get through it, but it's also very conscious of this stereotypical way that we think of women and what women are capable of and what women are not capable of. So there's a hilarious scene where they have to travel to Europe. So the whole film is kind of like a road trip through Europe. You go to Vienna and Prague and Paris and Berlin. I think you go to London as well. I'm not sure if you go to London, but it's kind of like a little bit of a road trip through Europe, which is quite fun. And they have to run from someone, I can't remember, and they're trying to take over someone's car. There's a really old couple, and they're like, I'm sorry, but we need this car. And then they get into the car and they want to drive away, and then they realize they're sitting in a car with a stick. And because they're Americans, they're like, do you know how to drive stick? No, do you know how to drive stick? And then they're trying to rush away in a car chase from people, and the car is literally just sliding down a hill because they can't manage to make it work. It is one of the most hilarious scenes in the entire film because the film just takes its time with it and lets that gag really go, and it's absolutely hilarious. I love it. It was one of the highlights for me. It was so fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, then we have a car chase, and they're on bikes, and like it's just all kinds of bonkers and stuff like that. And they even include an Uber driver or a Lyft driver. No, I think in this one it's an Uber driver, and he's part of the car chase as well, and he's really getting into it, and then shit happens, and then it's like, oops. And now Audrey has to drive, and she just can't help her training and has to indicate. It's like, I'm sorry, it's just a habit. It's like, you're telling him where we're going. It's like, I'm sorry, it's a habit. It's just like, it makes me so happy, and I'm almost laughing out loud because it's just, these scenes are all coming back to me now just thinking about it with all the stuff that I've written down. The film is just so good. I can't wait to see it again. And there's also a bit where they get like a Russian or seemingly Russian counter agent to try to get rid of the women. And also good enough is like that. One of the things I loved about it is that the Russian spy is also a woman, and she's very, very capable. And she was just told, it's like, there are 2 American women and you need to take them out. And so she's in Vienna or Prague or whatever. And she's got this ginormous sniper rifle, and she's up in like a church tower or something. And she's like, okay, I'm going to take down these women. And then you get all these what was it? 2 American women, 2 moronic American women or something. And then she looks at 2 women who are clearly tourists, and they're doing like moronic selfies with a statue, and someone else is barfing into a pond, and like basically the example of the worst kind of tourists you can imagine. And they're all 2 American, like groups of 2 American women. And it's like, well, which of all these groups of 2 American women shall I shoot? They're all shit. And it's kind of hilarious like that. It was really, really good. So she was quite kind of like a Red Sparrow gymnast. It really reminded me of Red Sparrow, the film with Jennifer Lawrence, that she used to be a gymnast and then all of a sudden she couldn't work for the government like that anymore because something happened, and then she turned into a Red Sparrow. So this particular spy really reminded me of that, which was great. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of hilarious stuff that I don't want to get too much into that because I don't want to spoil it. But there's so many funny scenes in that, and the film really lives off the small details. Like there's so much stuff happening that I think you need to watch it at least twice because there's just too much stuff happening. And because it is so predictable and it knows that it's predictable, it works that predictability into it. It's like there's something later on where Cirque du Soleil is part of something. And Kate McKinnon goes, oh, I should be part of Cirque du Soleil. And you know exactly, even though everyone tells her not to do it, you know exactly where that film is going. That's not a spoiler. You know that she's going to do something, that she's somehow going to be part of this whole shit with Cirque du Soleil. And it's going to be something absolutely ridiculous and bonkers. And she's just going to live through it without a scratch because that's just how it goes. And it's absolutely fantastic. And if you've seen the trailer, then you probably know who the Beyonce of government is. That's a agent for, was it the MI6, I think, played by Gillian Anderson. And Gillian Anderson and Kate McKinnon have brilliant, absolutely brilliant chemistry. They only have, I think, 2 or 3 scenes together, unfortunately. But they really make it work. And the entire time I was like, I just want to see a sequel with Kate McKinnon and Gillian Anderson. Because they're absolutely hilarious together. Because Gillian Anderson is playing this like super nonsensical spy supervisor. You know, she's like Sam Hugin's boss or something. And Kate McKinnon is like, well, we're in this together, right? It's like, we're part of this now. We're like extra special secret spies or something like that. And Gillian Anderson is like, no, you're not. You're not part of this. I'm talking to Sam, not to you. And she's like, yeah, but we're like, you know, we're part of this now, right? So where do you want us to go? And it's just absolutely hilarious like that. With the way that they work with each other on the phone, in person, it doesn't matter. That Beyonce of government is played by Gillian Anderson. I loved it. I was talking about the road trip. Yeah, Paris, Budapest. We also go to Budapest. And there's a funny thing in a hostel as well that I thought was hilarious. It's like the film really works for stereotypes. And they end up in a hostel, I think in Budapest it is. And they're all 3 of them are like in there. And they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. And then another backpacker walks into this room that is clearly a shared room. And all 3 of them just go like, and draw the gun on them. And he's like, he's not faced. He's like, Americans, eh? It's like, Americans, eh? So he doesn't really give a shit. It's like, he just had guns drawn on him by 3 individuals. It's like, Americans, eh? Don't worry. And he just throws his stuff on the bed and goes in. I was like, what the fuck? The film is very self-aware, very meta as well. It's so fucking funny. I talked about Cirque du Soleil. Oh yeah, there's something about, you know how I was talking about Hotel Artemis and I said that they have the coolest and most disturbing printer jam in the history of printer jams. If you've still not seen Hotel Artemis, what the fuck are you doing? Stop this broadcast right now and go and see Hotel Artemis. Trust me, it's really good. No one's ever heard of the film. Everyone I talk to goes like, what's Hotel Artemis? It's like, it's a good movie. People need to watch this. Anyway, Hotel Artemis had the printer jam. The Spy Who Dumped Me, among other things, has the weirdest use of a lipstick container that I've ever seen. I'll leave it at that. And then, yeah, there's You're a Little Much thing that Justin Theroux says to Kate McKinnon. Definitely, you know, rings home. And I love it that is near the end of the film where Kate McKinnon, where Morgan is basically telling that to Audrey. And Audrey's like, you've never told me that he said that to you. That's just so not okay. And she's like, yeah, well, but you were in love with the guy, so I can't tell you shit about the guy you're in love with. And that's one of the things that's also really great about female friendships, because it's like, if I'd known that, I probably wouldn't have dated him, because I'm not dating someone who tells my best friend she's a bit much just because she's awesome. She literally, Morgan walked over to him and did the whole, if you hurt her, I will tear out your heart with a spoon, a blunt one, and then I'll make you eat it or whatever, right? And he goes, you're a bit much. It's like, no, she's not a bit much. She just clearly cares about her best friend, and I absolutely applaud that. So I love that. The film has a female director. Gillian Anderson and Kate McKinnon are awesome together. Mila Kunis and Kate McKinnon are awesome together. I want to see a sequel. Stay till after the credits. Trust me on that. There is stuff happening there that you want to see. I love this film. I think I love it even more now that I've talked about it, that all these scenes are coming back to me. I had so much fun in the cinema. The guy next to me, he was, like I said, he was laughing at least every 5 minutes, and he was laughing out loud. Hilarious. I think we were the only two laughing because people were like, oh, I'm in a press screening and I am trying to take notes and I am I'm a reviewer, I cannot laugh. It's like, this is definitely a movie you need to see with a proper audience. It's like when you go and see a horror movie in a press screening, it's just not the same thing. You need people that freak the fuck out next to you, and that's just so much more fun, right? Even though you get the occasional people with the fucking phones on, why'd you do that? If you want to check your phone, leave the cinema. Don't go to the cinema if you think your phone's more important than the film that's screening, that you probably paid 10 to 15 pounds to see. Alright, just cut it the fuck out. So I'm going to go and see this again. It comes out apparently on the 22nd of August, so put that in your calendar. Especially if you're a girl, you want to go and see this because it's so much fun. Make a girl's night out. It's so awesome. Mila Kunis is hilarious. Kate McKinnon is hilarious. Together, they're even more hilarious. They go from one ridiculous scenario to the next. It is like, not like this shit would never ever happen or fly anywhere, but because it's a stupid comedy, that just goes. And they make it work, and they're really captivating. And you just go like, yeah, fuck it, shit. You know, let's just do it. They're in a car together and going like, well, we have to go to Austria. Well, do you have any other plans going to Austria? It's like, no, I don't have any plans for today. Okay, let's go and get the hell to Austria. And they just do. And it's just so consistently awesome. And that whole thing is like, well, it's going to look suspicious if we go and walk into the airplane without a suitcase. Let's buy a suitcase. Yeah, but we can't have an empty suitcase. Well, we're going to go and put it into the suitcase. And that plays into stuff that happens later on. And it's just so, like, the script's actually really well written when you think about it. Absolutely love the film. I love the performances. I love the situational awareness. I love the direction. I love the action. There's so much action in this. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it's so, so good. And they both really went for it. And I love it. And I can't wait to, like, I really want a sequel. I'm not joking about that. I want a sequel to The Spy Who Dumped Me. The Spy Who Dumped Me again. Yet another Spy Who Dumped Me. Whatever, you can call it any of that, and I will go and watch it. This was absolutely fantastic. You go and see it. This for me is definitely the movie of the week. But I have another movie I want to talk to you about, and that is, in case you can't see that, that is Denzel in The Equalizer 2. And if you don't know what that is about, the synopsis for Equalizer 2 is, if you have a problem and there's nowhere else to turn, the mysterious and elusive Robert McCall, aka Denzel, will deliver the vigilante justice you seek. This time, however, McCall's past cuts especially close to home when thugs kill Susan Plummer, his best friend and former colleague. Now out for revenge, McCall must take on a crew of highly trained assassins who'll stop at nothing to destroy him. Now that already has a tiny bit of a spoiler actually in it. That is something that happens, I think, in the first half hour. Obviously Denzel Washington is playing McCall, just like he did in the first one. If you've not seen the first one, it's actually a really good movie. It's a good action movie. Denzel does what Liam Neeson does, basically. He's like in his, how old is he? In his 50s as well. And he's taking names and kicking ass, you know. It's really, really good. He's a vigilante with a heart. He sees something that is not okay, and he steps in and sorts it out, which is really cool. I especially liked the start of the film, where it literally puts you on a train that is rushing towards a destination, and which is a perfect way to showcase. It's like we're in the middle of something you've not seen the setup for. We're just dropping you in, like, throwing the kid into the swimming pool and see if it swims, that kind of a thing. And it works really well, and there's immediately really great action. We are reaffirmed seeing McCall doing his great stuff again with like the stopwatch, even though I still don't get it. Why does he need to stop how long it takes him to take out 5 guys or something? It's like, I can't remember why that was such a big thing in the first one. I thought that was weird in the first one as well. We have Denzel playing McCall. Melissa Leo is playing the best friend who gets killed. Pedro Pascal is in it, and Bill Pullman, and a bunch of other people. But this is basically a Denzel Washington thing. He's just, doing his Denzel thing. He's just trying to have his life, and he sees shit happening, and he just can't help but step in, which is kind of what you want people to be like, right? So he saves a little girl and brings her back to her parents, or he helps out some young man in the neighborhood who might be hanging out with gangs. And then, like the synopsis says, shit happens to his best friend and he has to step in because it's your best friend. It's like The Spy Who Dumped Me. It's like you do stuff for your best friend, right? The film, unfortunately, also quite predictable, which doesn't necessarily work really well for a film of that magnitude and that thematic topic. For whatever reason, all the special agents and CIA and fuck knows else who's involved in this stuff trying to figure out what happened to Melissa Leo's character, no one can figure it out except for Denzel, who looks at the CCTV footage and goes like, oh, there we go, that's like the missing link. It's like, and you're, for whatever reason, the only one who came up with that, which is a bit weird, but that is what it is. Like I said, it is very predictable, and you just kind of have to forgive it, which I think, for a movie like that, it's fine by me, right? It's very cliche. I almost spoiled something there. I mean, it's that cliche that is so fucking obvious. Like, seriously, when certain characters meet, and you can just tell, it's like, oh, yeah, you're gonna be the bad guy. It's just so obvious. It's so fucking obvious. It's like in, what was the last one? Oh, Skyscraper with The Rock. That was equally as cliche and predictable as to who the bad guy was and how they're connected and all of that stuff. The Equalizer does pretty much the same thing, but because it's all about the action, it's like you forgive it that it has very cliched, stereotypical plot points. There are a lot of really good moments in this film that made the audience laugh. So I watched this at the Cineworld Unlimited screening on Monday, I think it was. So that was more of like a proper audience as opposed to a press screening. There was a lot of stuff that people really enjoyed. Denzel, like, taking charge of stuff, certain dialogue pieces he delivers, certain actions he delivers that are just so in character. And because you know who he is and what he stands for, you can see these things coming from a mile away. But when they then happen, you just go like, oh yeah, here we go. It just works. The audience clearly had a lot of fun with that, and I call them the Denzel moments, because just the way that he delivers a line, or that he just looks at someone and then just, I don't know, punches them in the face or whatever it is. It just really, really works. I really enjoyed it for that. But you can't ever forget how cliched it is. And that goes all the way through to the dialogue as well. The dialogue is very stereotypical. There's like a scene where it's like, your husband said that you would give me a lift to the station, wink wink. And that gets him out of a precarious situation. And it's just, he's just such a smooth talker and such a stylish assassin, ballbuster kind of a dude, that you forgive him a lot of the stuff that is just so out there. You just take it as a given that he's basically Superman without the cape. Throughout the film, you never feel like anything could happen to Denzel. I don't think he even gets shot or busted up or anything. He's like, there's no peril, there's no danger. that at all times he's going to be fine, nothing will happen to him because he's the hero. He literally is like Superman but without the cape. He's bulletproof and nothing will happen to him. And while I guess that could on the one hand be kind of cool, on the other hand it's like you never fear for the character, and if you never fear for the character, there's no thrill, there's no suspense. You don't go, oh my god, because you know he's gonna be fine because he's Denzel, right? So that was a bit of a letdown. I think I feared more for other characters, like especially that kid, that young black kid that he's trying to help to stay away from gangs. I was like, oh, maybe he's gonna eat it, you know, he's gonna bite the dust. But you never fear that anything happens to Denzel. Even at the end, you just know that he's gonna get through it. That's not a spoiler. The film is just so fucking predictable in that regard that you know he's just gonna walk out of that unscathed. You know, he might have a bit of a, you know, like a bruise left or right, and that's about it. There's no real peril that the character goes through where you go, fuck, he might not make it out alive. That just doesn't exist. And I think that is tiny bit of a letdown in the film, actually. Bit of a problem. But the action bits overall were really good. The shootouts are really good. Like especially the start action sequence in the train already sets the tone for it. There's not as much action in this as you might expect. I think the first one had a lot more of that. This one is more of an intimate personal story because, you know, Equalizer 2, this time it's personal because you killed my best friend and now I'm coming after you. And he also goes home. We find out a bit of stuff about him, about his past a bit more. So everything is a bit more intimate, smaller, and even though they travel internationally, but it feels more intimate than the first one did. And on the one hand, I think that's a good idea to give us more insight into the character. But on the other hand, it also felt like you knew that there was nothing that will stop him from righting the wrong, from taking revenge. Because this time actually it's more like taking revenge because you've taken my best friend away from me. You've killed my best friend and I'm going to sort you out now. So because of that, it did feel a bit more intimate and personal, but also a bit removed from everything else that we've seen, which was a bit of a letdown. It's somehow, I mean, to be fair, as a bit of a disclaimer, I'm not a huge fan of the first one either. Like, I thought that was a okay action film, but it's nothing to write home about. It didn't reinvent the wheel or anything like that. So the second one is pretty much the same thing. It's action that you've seen before. There's nothing you have never ever seen before. Denzel is doing his Denzel stuff. He's a great actor. He's a very captivating, charming performer. And he does exactly the same thing here. It's not an Oscar-worthy performance or anything, but it's solid action. It's very predictable, stereotypical, and cliche in regards to characters and plot. But overall, it was enjoyable. But to be fair, one of my mates, he had seen this film previously, and he was like, don't get your hopes up. It's not that great. So my expectations were very, very low. But I still enjoyed the film on a very basic level. So I would not recommend anyone go out of their way to see it. It's not a highlight that you can't miss. You can easily watch this on Blu-ray, on Netflix, or not at all. It's not like you're missing out on much. But if you feel like you want to go and see a Denzel Washington film, this is the only one that we currently have in the cinema. So go and check it out. You know, he's charming as hell, as always, right? And there's a lot of funny bits in there. There were definitely scenes in there that were laugh out loud funny. There was a lot of audience members. There were chuckling left, right, and center. There was quite a lot of laughter. In between, like the shootouts and potential tragic bits. But overall, I think it's not that much of a highlight, really. If you have to miss this, that's fine. Go and check out... I wanted to check out when Searching comes out. I forgot that last time as well. Let's have a look. Because I'm trying to tell people to go and check out Searching. It doesn't actually have a proper release date. That's rubbish. Because I was talking about this, I think last week. Let's see, USA, UK? No, that's a festival. Oh, 31st of August. Okay, cool. So forget about Equalizer. Like, you can watch it. It's decent entertainment, but it's nothing new. You like, if you've seen any of Liam Neeson's films, this is kind of like substituting Liam Neeson for Denzel Washington. That's kind of a thing. It's like a solid action film, but it's not great. You haven't missed anything. This one, The Spy Who Dumped Me, is really, really good. I highly recommend watching that when it comes out end of August. Apparently 22nd of August. Last week, or the week before last, I was talking about a little film called Searching, which was part of Cineworld's Unlimited screening back then. Comes out on apparently on the 31st of August. I hope I will remember to mention that in the next few weeks. When that comes out, do check that out because that was absolutely fantastic. Check out, I think episode 18 is what I was talking about that. Really, really great film. If you want to watch something funny, put this one on your list. Not just for the ladies, but definitely if you want to have a girls' night out, I think you can't go wrong watching The Spy Who Dumped Me. It's so much fun. It's absolutely hilarious. It's got girl power and it's all about empowerment and female friendship. And I thought that was really fantastic. It's something that I didn't think that was going to happen. It's kind of like I Feel Pretty with Amy Schumer. I didn't think that was going to be that fantastic. And yet I thought that is such a feminist film and so empowering as well and has really good message and stuff. This one is a lot more fun than that. And if you like Mila Kunis and you like Kate McKinnon, I think you know you're going to have a good time. It's a really wicked film. Comes out on the 22nd. Put that in your calendar. And I will see you again next Thursday. And I will be talking probably about the Meg, that ginormous shark. I'm so excited. I'm so gutted I couldn't see it today because it comes out tomorrow and I haven't been able to catch a preview of that, unfortunately. One of my mates has watched it on Tuesday and he was like, it's decent, but it's not Jaws. So we'll see how that one goes. And there's another film out, The Darkest Minds or something like that. I'll probably watch that one as well. So expect that to be the topic of next week, unless I come up with something entirely different. But I'm pretty sure I will be talking about the Meg because I love me a good shark movie. I love me a good water catastrophe something. You know, like the last one I watched was The Shallows, and I love that film. It was so much fun to watch. Oh yeah, that's on Netflix now. I think The Shallows. So if you that's with I think it's Blake Lively who's in it. If you've not seen that, check it out on Netflix. It's so much fun to watch. I will see you next Thursday. Have a great time in the cinema. Hit me up on Twitter. Find me at Ilovecinema Vlog. You can find my personal Twitter that way as well. Comment. Check it out on YouTube where all my previous episodes are. Just go hashtag Ilovecinema and you will find all that stuff. Yeah, find me on Twitter. Let's talk movies. Go to the movies. Have fun. See you later.